The rain came down in sharp, silver sheets, blurring the neon signs of the small, town strip mall. Shoppers hurried under umbrellas, some running for cover while others lingered at the edges of the stores, their arms heavy with bags. It was supposed to be just another evening. Quiet, forgettable. But fate often waits for such ordinary moments to strike with something extraordinary. Inside the fluorescent, lit grocery store, the security alarms shrieked suddenly, echoing across the aisles. Heads turned. A woman, no older than 40, her hair tied back in a neat bun, clutched a paper bag against her chest. 2 store employees closed in on her, their voices sharp, accusing. "Ma'am, stop right there! You need to come with us. You didn't pay for that." Her eyes, calm but defensive, darted around as the crowd began to form a hesitant circle. Shoppers whispered, some pulling out phones. The woman tried to explain, her voice steady but low. "I paid. Check the cameras. There's been a mistake." But the store manager, a stocky man with a red face, shook his head. "Don't make this harder. We've had too many of these cases lately. Put the bag down and come quietly." From across the store, a man had been watching. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a weathered face that carried the weight of 1,000 silent battles. He looked like someone you wouldn't want to cross. His jacket was faded, his boots scuffed. Everything about him whispered of hard roads walked. His name was Daniel Hayes, a single father, a veteran who had once led men into hostile deserts and jungles, but now lived paycheck to paycheck, trying to raise his teenage daughter with dignity. Daniel had seen plenty of injustices in his life. Enough to know when someone was being cornered. He caught the way the woman's jaw clenched. How her hands didn't tremble like most caught shoplifters. Something about her carried control, authority, even as she was being accused. The employees grabbed her arm. The woman straightened her back, refusing to flinch, and said firmly, "Don't touch me. I'm not stealing. Look at the register logs." But her protest was drowned by murmurs from the growing crowd. "Caught red-handed," someone muttered. "Shameful." Daniel's daughter, Emma, just 14, tugged on his sleeve. Her hazel eyes, wide with concern, flicked between him and the woman. "Dad, are you gonna let them do this? She doesn't look guilty." Daniel's gaze hardened. He knew what it meant to be judged without evidence, to be condemned before a word of truth was heard. His fists clenched at his sides as he stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Hey, let her go." The employees froze, startled by the authority in his tone. The crowd fell silent for a moment as Daniel moved closer, every step deliberate, controlled. He stood beside the woman, placing himself like a shield. "Who are you?" the manager demanded. "Someone who's seen enough sham trials to know what this looks like," Daniel said. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that pressed on the air. "You don't lay hands on someone without proof. Roll back your cameras. Check her receipt. Do it right." The manager's jaw worked in frustration. Caught between the demands of protocol and the presence of a man who looked like he'd weathered storms far worse than an angry customer. "Sir, this is none of your business." Daniel leaned in slightly, his voice lowering, sharper now. "It became my business the second you decided mob justice was faster than truth." The woman looked at him then, really looked. Her eyes flickering with something almost like recognition. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. The tension crackled. Phones recorded. Security guards finally arrived, pushing through the crowd. They grabbed the woman's arm again, preparing to escort her out. Daniel's jaw tightened. His daughter's voice trembled at his side. "Dad, please." And then, the woman spoke, her voice rising above the accusations with steel, like precision. "You're making a mistake. I'm Captain Sarah Mitchell, Metropolitan Police. Badge 4973. And unless you want this store shut down and your name's written into a report for unlawful detainment, I suggest you stop right now." The words hit like thunder. The guards froze. The crowd gasped. The manager's face went pale. And Daniel. He didn't move an inch, his expression unreadable, though inside his instincts lit up with a soldier's awareness. An off-duty police captain. A supposed shoplifter. And now, the man who had stood between her and the world realized he had stepped into a storm far greater than he imagined. The woman's sharp eyes landed on him, a flicker of gratitude hidden in their depths. But around them, whispers were already spreading like wildfire. If she was telling the truth, why hadn't she said so earlier? If she was lying, why was she so calm? The rain outside hammered the glass. Inside, the silence after her declaration felt deafening. Daniel knew one thing with certainty. Whatever came next would test him, his daughter, And everyone in that store in ways they could not yet see. Because sometimes, truth isn't enough to silence suspicion. And sometimes, the line between protector and victim blurs into something far more dangerous. For a long, heavy moment, no one moved. The words hung in the air like a gunshot, and yet no one seemed certain what to do with them. The manager's cheeks flushed crimson, his voice cracking under the weight of both embarrassment and defiance. Badge or not, you walked out without paying. We have you on camera. Sarah's jaw tightened. She reached into her coat pocket with slow, deliberate movements, ignoring the tension as the guards instinctively stiffened. She produced a sleek black leather wallet and flipped it open with practiced precision. The gold badge gleamed under the store's harsh lights, catching the eyes of everyone gathered. Murmurs spread quickly, suspicion giving way to shock. She wasn't lying. She's really a cop. Then why? The guards faltered. One of them, a younger man barely out of training, stammered, "Ma'am, I didn't know. We were just following orders." But Sarah wasn't looking at them. Her focus was fixed on the manager. Her tone sharp enough to cut steel. "You accused me in front of a crowd without checking a receipt. You grabbed me without verifying facts. You've violated more than one protocol here. And if this man hadn't stepped in..." She nodded subtly toward Daniel. "You'd have dragged a police captain out of this store like a criminal." The manager sputtered, words failing him, but Daniel noticed his eyes darting nervously toward the recording phones raised all around. Damage control was slipping through his fingers. Daniel stayed silent, though his mind raced. Something about Sarah's reaction didn't fully align. Most people would have pulled the badge out immediately, ended the ordeal in seconds. But she had waited. Why? Emma's hand squeezed his. "Date, is it over?" she whispered. He wanted to say yes, to gather her and walk out the doors into the cleansing rain. But something in his gut told him this was far from over. Sarah exhaled, her voice dropping into something lower, more measured. "Check your registers." The purchase was already logged. "I used self-checkout, bagged my items. Your sensors must have misread." A cashier hurried to the back counter, fumbling with the system. After a few tense seconds, the man called out, "She's right." Transaction went through. All items accounted for. The crowd groaned. A mix of relief and shame. A few people lowered their phones. But others kept filming, eager to capture the viral confrontation. The manager muttered something under his breath, his arrogance collapsing into muttered apologies. "A misunderstanding. My apologies, Captain Mitchell. We'll correct this." Sarah's expression didn't soften. Her eyes lingered on him, cold and assessing, before she finally turned toward Daniel. "You didn't have to step in," she said quietly, so only he and Emma could hear. Daniel's tone was firm. "Yes, I did." Their eyes locked, hers searching, his unflinching. For a second, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them, two strangers bound by an incident that was anything but random. Then, almost reluctantly, she gave him a nod. "Thank you." But Daniel caught something else beneath the surface. A flicker of unease, as though gratitude wasn't the only thing she carried. The crowd began to disperse. Some grumbling about wasted time, others shaking their heads at the humiliation of it all. The guards retreated, the store resuming its uneasy rhythm. Though the echo of the confrontation lingered like a ghost. Daniel turned to leave with Emma, but Sarah called out, "Wait." He paused, wary. "I owe you an explanation," she said. Her voice, stripped of its commanding edge, sounded almost human now, burdened. "Not here. Not with all these ears." Daniel studied her. Every instinct screamed that walking away was the safer choice. He had fought too many battles, seen too many secrets unravel into chaos. But Emma's wide, curious eyes looked up at him, and he remembered the years of teaching her that silence in the face of wrong was complicity. He gave a small nod. "All right." Outside. They stepped into the night air, the rain easing into a mist that clung to their clothes. The strip mall lights flickered, reflecting on the wet pavement. Sarah leaned against a pillar, arms crossed tightly over her chest. She looked less like an accused criminal now, less like an officer. And more like someone carrying a weight too heavy for most to bear. "You're wondering why I didn't show the badge right away," she began, her eyes fixed on the distant traffic lights. Daniel said nothing, waiting. "Because I wasn't supposed to be here," she admitted after a beat. "Not in this town. Not off duty. And certainly not in that store." Emma tilted her head, confused. "Why not?" "You didn't do anything wrong." Sarah's lips curved into a humorless smile. Sometimes doing the right thing and being where you're allowed to be don't line up. Kid. Daniel's brow furrowed. He'd heard words like that before. On missions, in hushed conversations, when truths were too dangerous to speak aloud. What are you really doing here? He asked quietly. Sarah hesitated, her gaze shifting, as though calculating how much to reveal. Finally she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I'm not just a captain. I'm investigating something off the record. Corruption. Deep. And tonight was too close of a call. Daniel's chest tightened. He hadn't expected that. Sarah straightened, her eyes piercing his. You helped me when you didn't have to. That means something. But it also puts you in the middle of something you might not want to touch. For a moment. Only the sound of distant tires on wet asphalt filled the silence. Emma looked between them, her young face caught between fear and fascination. Daniel's instincts flared. He had spent his life recognizing the difference between ordinary trouble and the kind that changes lives forever. This, he knew, was the latter. And as the mist hung heavy in the night, Daniel Hayes understood one thing with chilling clarity. His decision to step forward inside that store hadn't just saved a woman's reputation. It had pulled him, and his daughter, into a storm that was only beginning. Daniel didn't speak right away. He just studied Sarah, reading the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes flicked across the parking lot, as though every shadow might hide an enemy. It was the same look he'd seen in combat zones. People who lived with one foot in the light and the other in danger's shadow. Emma shifted uneasily, clutching her hoodie tighter around her small frame. Dead, what does she mean? Corruption. Sarah's gaze softened slightly at the girl's question. It means there are people in power who use their position for themselves instead of for justice. And when someone gets too close to the truth. She trailed off, her lips pressing into a hard line. Daniel's voice cut in, low and steady. Then accidents happen. Sarah met his eyes. And for the first time there was a flicker of recognition. Not of faces, but of souls who had both walked too close to fire. She gave a short nod. Exactly. Emma's brows knit together. But you're a captain. Don't you have people you can trust? Sarah hesitated, glancing down at the rain-slicked pavement. Trust, she said bitterly, is the first thing corruption eats alive. Daniel felt the weight of her words sink into him. He remembered nights overseas when orders came down from high command that made no sense. When lives were risked for reasons no soldier was allowed to question. He had learned the same hard truth. Sometimes the enemy wore the same uniform. The mist thickened around them, cloaking the parking lot in a gray haze. Sarah shifted her weight, suddenly restless. Look, I shouldn't have pulled you into this. You were just trying to do the right thing. But the fact you stepped in. That doesn't go unnoticed. Daniel's jaw tightened. By who? Her eyes darkened. By the same people who tried to paint me as a thief tonight. That wasn't an accident. The words hit harder than gunfire. Daniel's mind raced back to the confrontation inside. The overzealous manager. The timing of the guards. The way the sensors just happened to trip at the exact moment she walked out. You're saying that was a setup? Sarah nodded grimly. And whoever orchestrated it wanted me discredited. Or worse, arrested. If word spread that I was caught shoplifting, my career would be finished. My investigation buried with it. Emma gasped. That's evil. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on his daughter's shoulder. But his gut twisted. He had thought he was intervening in a simple case of false accusation. Instead, he had stepped into something far larger, far darker. Sarah straightened, pulling her coat tighter as if to shield herself from the chill. I need to go. Staying in one place too long isn't safe. She turned, starting toward a black sedan parked under a flickering light, but Daniel's voice stopped her. What are you investigating? She froze. He stepped closer, his tone leaving no room for evasion. If I'm already a target because I helped you, I deserve to know what I've walked into. Sarah turned slowly. For the first time, her hardened exterior cracked just enough to show the weight she carried. A network. Dirty money funneled through contracts, disappearing into hands that wear suits by day and badges by night. It runs deep, deeper than anyone wants to admit. And if I can't expose it, her voice faltered, then steadied. People will keep suffering. Innocents will keep paying the price. Emma whispered. Like Mom. The words slipped out before she realized, her voice breaking at the mention. Daniel's heart clenched. His late wife's passing still hung over them like an unspoken shadow. An accident caused by medical negligence that had never been fully investigated. He had buried his rage beneath duty. Beneath survival. Sarah looked at Emma gently, then back to Daniel. Yes, exactly like that. The parking lot suddenly felt smaller, the night air heavier. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to take Emma home. To lock the doors, to keep her safe from this web of danger. But another part of him, the part that had once sworn to protect the defenseless, wouldn't let him turn away. I can't fight this alone. Sarah admitted, her voice quieter now, almost vulnerable. But I don't have the luxury of trusting the wrong person. That's why I didn't tell anyone. Not even my own unit. Daniel searched her face. Her eyes were tired, but they didn't waver. He saw no lies there, only a desperate determination. He took a breath, the decision heavy but inevitable. If you're right, you're going to need backup. Sarah blinked, surprised. And you're volunteering. I've dealt with corruption before, he said evenly. Different battlefield, same war. You can't scare me off with shadows. He glanced down at Emma, whose worried eyes locked on his. But I won't let it touch her. Emma swallowed hard, then squeezed his hand. Dead, if it's like you say. If bad people are hurting good people. Then maybe we're supposed to help. Her voice was small, but the resolve in it was unmistakable. Pride and fear warred in Daniel's chest. His daughter had inherited her mother's courage, and it terrified him to think of where that might lead. Sarah studied them both for a long moment, then finally gave a faint, grim smile. You might regret that offer, Hayes. The sound of an engine starting in the distance made them all turn. A dark SUV sat idling at the far end of the lot. Headlights cutting through the mist. It hadn't been there moments ago. Sarah's face hardened instantly. They're watching. Daniel stepped in front of Emma without thinking, his old instincts snapping alive. Jet in your car, he ordered. Sarah didn't argue. She unlocked the sedan with a click, sliding in behind the wheel. Before closing the door, she looked at Daniel one last time. If you're serious, meet me tomorrow night. Pier 17, midnight. And then she was gone, her taillights vanishing into the fog. Daniel stood rooted, the SUV still idling in the distance like a predator waiting to strike. He wrapped an arm around Emma, his voice steady but his heart racing. Come on, kid. Time to get home. As they walked toward their truck, the SUV's lights blinked off, melting into the night. Emma's whisper carried in the mist. Day-aid, what if they come after us? Daniel didn't answer. He only tightened his grip on her hand, knowing that for the first time in years, he was stepping back onto a battlefield, and this one was going to hit closer to home than he ever imagined. The night had never felt so long. Daniel lay awake in his modest home, the ceiling fan spinning lazily above, his thoughts heavier than the darkness around him. Beside his room, Emma's light breathing came through the thin walls, a fragile reminder of the innocence he had sworn to protect. But tonight, that promise felt tested. Sarah Mitchell's words replayed like echoes in his mind. Corruption, network setup. He knew the look in her eyes hadn't been paranoia. It had been survival. Sleep never came. By dawn he was already up, coffee brewing in the worn pot, his hands tracing old scars he never liked to think about. His daughter shuffled in, hair messy, eyes half-closed. She dropped into a chair and watched him quietly. You're going, aren't you? She asked finally. Daniel looked at her, guilt pricking his chest. Emma. She met his gaze with a stubborn steadiness far beyond her years. You always told me that walking away from the truth is the same as lying. If you believe her, you have to help. He sighed. Helping her could put us in danger. I know. Her voice didn't shake. But Mom would have helped. The words cut deeper than she realized. His late wife's kindness had always been fierce, her compassion unshakable. Emma wasn't wrong, she would have helped. Daniel felt the weight of her absence more than ever. By nightfall, the choice was made. He kissed Emma's forehead, told her to lock the doors, and promised he'd be back. She wanted to argue, but instead she just whispered, Be careful, Dad. The docks at Pier 17 were cloaked in shadows, the air damp with salt and oil. Crates stacked high created mazes of darkness. The only sounds were the lapping of water against wood and the occasional screech of gulls. Midnight drew close. Daniel's boots echoed softly as he walked to the far end of the pier, his senses sharpened. Every instinct alive. He had survived ambushes before, and this place carried the same tension, quiet, but waiting. A black sedan rolled up, its headlights off. Sarah stepped out, her coat wrapped tightly around her, her face hidden beneath the brim of a cap. She scanned the area before approaching. You came, she said, her tone equal parts relieved and wary. you asked. Daniel replied simply. For a moment, they just stood there, two figures shaped by wars both seen and unseen. Finally, Sarah pulled out a folder from under her coat and handed it to him. This is why they want me gone. Daniel opened it carefully. Inside were photographs, transaction records and surveillance stills. He flipped through, his brows furrowing deeper with every page. High-ranking officials, city contractors, even uniformed officers appeared in the documents, tied together by a web of shell companies and offshore accounts. Millions siphoned from community projects. Sarah explained, her voice low. Funds meant for schools, housing, healthcare, all funneled into private pockets. And the people covering it up aren't just politicians. They're wearing badges. Daniel's stomach turned. This is organized. Not just corruption. This is systemic. Sarah nodded grimly. And if I take this public without airtight proof, they'll bury me. Or worse. He studied the evidence again, then looked at her. And you think I can help? I know you can. You see things other people don't. You don't scare easy. And after last night, you're already on their radar. They won't let you walk away clean. Her words carried the chill of truth. Daniel glanced toward the shadows of the pier. His soldier's instincts prickled. Something wasn't right. Were you followed? He asked sharply. Sarah stiffened. I don't think so. But even as she said it, headlights flared at the far end of the pier. A black SUV rolled in, followed by another. Engines rumbled, tires crunching over gravel. Sarah's hand instinctively went to her side, but she cursed under her breath. Off duty, I'm unarmed. Daniel's jaw clenched. Then stick closed. The SUV stopped. Their doors opening in unison. Men in dark clothing stepped out, their movements precise, deliberate. Not random thugs trained. Their faces were shadowed, but the glint of weapons was unmistakable. One of them called out, his voice carrying over the water. Captain Mitchell. You should have kept your head down. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Detective Rourke. She muttered under her breath. Daniel's head snapped toward her. You know him? She nodded grimly. Internal affairs. Or at least, that's his cover. He's one of them. Rourke stepped closer, his smirk visible now under the pier's lights. And who's your friend? A hero wannabe. His gaze swept over Daniel, dismissive. Doesn't matter. He'll disappear with you. Sarah's shoulders tensed, but Daniel's calm never faltered. His voice cut through the night like steel. If you're going to make a move, do it. But know this. You'll have to go through me first. The men shifted uneasily. There was something in Daniel's stance, in the quiet authority of his words, that unsettled even hardened enforcers. Rourke laughed, though it rang hollow. Big words for a washed-up vet. He motioned with his hand, and two men advanced. Daniel's body moved before thought. He grabbed a loose pipe from the pier, swinging it with deadly precision. The first man went down, weapon clattering across the wood. The second lunged, but Daniel sidestepped, driving his elbow into the attacker's gut with bone, cracking force. Sarah snatched the fallen weapon, covering Daniel's flank as the rest of the men closed in. Gunfire split the night, flashes lighting up the dock. Emma's face flashed in Daniel's mind, fueling every strike, every calculated move. For years he had tried to bury the soldier inside him. But tonight, under the cold gaze of corruption, the warrior in Daniel Hayes was reborn. The battle at the pier was just beginning. Gunfire tore through the night, echoing off the warehouses and across the dark water. Daniel dove behind a stack of crates, pulling Sarah down with him. Splinters sprayed as bullets chewed through the wood. The sharp scent of salt and gunpowder filling the air. Cover the left. Daniel barked instinctively, his voice carrying the command of a man who had led men into worse hells. Sarah didn't hesitate. She pivoted. Steady hands leveling the pistol she had snatched. She squeezed the trigger, forcing the men back behind their SUVs. For a heartbeat, silence returned. Tense, expectant. Daniel's chest heaved, adrenaline flooding his veins, but his mind stayed cold. Every move had to count. They're trying to box us in. If they push from both sides, we're finished. Sarah gritted her teeth. Then we push first. Before Daniel could argue, she sprang from cover, laying down suppressing fire. The attackers ducked low, startled by her precision. Daniel surged forward, pipe still in hand. He caught one man trying to flank them, knocking the weapon clean from his hands before hurling him into the side of a shipping container. The clang rang out like a bell. Another charged, but Daniel spun, using the man's own momentum to send him sprawling onto the pier. The soldier in him moved like muscle memory. Every strike exact, every motion honed from years of survival. Sarah regrouped at his side, panting, her eyes sharp. Not bad for a civilian. Daniel smirked grimly. Who said I was? But the brief exchange was cut short. A voice bellowed across the pier, calm and steady. Rourke. Hayes! Mitchell! Enough games. You're outnumbered, outgunned. Drop it now, and maybe I let the girl live. Daniel froze. The words pierced deeper than any bullet. He whipped around, eyes scanning, and then he saw it. At the edge of the pier, another SUV with its door open. A figure stood there holding Emma. His daughter. Her terrified eyes locked on him, a gag muffling her cries. Her small wrists were bound in zip ties, her body trembling as one of Rourke's men held her firmly. Daniel's heart stopped. His vision tunneled, rage and terror colliding like a storm inside him. Emma. Sarah's eyes widened. They followed you home. She whispered in horror. Rourke stepped forward, smugness etched into his face. You should have stayed out of this, Hayes. Now your little girl pays the price for your hero complex. Daniel's grip on the pipe tightened until his knuckles whitened. He wanted nothing more than to charge forward, to tear through them with his bare hands, but he forced himself still. Reckless rage would get Emma killed. His voice was low, dangerous. Let her go, Rourke. This is between you and us. Rourke shook his head slowly. No, Hayes. This is what happens when nobodies stick their nose where it doesn't belong. You want her safe. Then hand over the files Mitchell gave you. Daniel glanced at Sarah. She still clutched the folder under her coat. If she surrendered it, they'd both die anyway. If they didn't, Emma. Sarah's whisper was urgent. He won't keep his word. Even if we give it, they'll kill us all. Daniel's jaw clenched. She was right. He had seen this tactic before. Leverage, bait, execution. Rourke wouldn't risk leaving witnesses. Emma's muffled sob reached him. His chest ached, his mind racing. He needed a plan. Something fast, something they wouldn't see coming. His eyes scanned the pier. The crates. The stacked barrels. The crane suspended overhead, hook swaying lightly in the sea breeze. His soldier's mind pieced it together in seconds. Daniel leaned close to Sarah. When I move, draw their fire. Keep it chaotic. No matter what happens, protect her. Sarah's eyes flickered with hesitation, but then resolve hardened in them. She gave the faintest nod. Daniel straightened, stepping out from cover, pipe in hand. His voice boomed across the pier. You want me, Rourke? Here I am. The men raised their weapons. Sarah burst from the side, firing rapidly. Muzzle flashes lit up the night, chaos erupting. Daniel sprinted, not toward Rourke, but toward the crane. Bullets hissed past him, one grazing his arm. But he didn't falter. He leapt onto the platform, climbing with the desperate strength of a father with nothing left to lose. Rourke's shout echoed. Shoot him down. But it was too late. Daniel swung onto the crane's controls, yanking the lever. The hook and cable dropped with a shriek of metal, crashing into the pier between Emma's captor and the SUVs. The shockwave knocked men sprawling, crates toppling into the water. In the chaos, Sarah charged forward, a warrior in plain clothes. She dropped one attacker with a precise shot, then dove at Emma's captor. The man tried to pull the girl back, but Sarah drove her elbow into his throat, sending him stumbling. Emma fell free, Sarah yanking the gag from her mouth. Run to your dad, she ordered. Emma scrambled across the pier, her wide eyes locking on Daniel, who dropped from the crane platform to the dock below. He caught her in his arms, pulling her close. His heart nearly breaking with relief. I've got you, baby girl. I've got you. But the fight wasn't over. Rourke emerged from behind the SUVs, his pistol raised, his fury blazing. Enough. This ends now. Daniel shoved Emma behind him, his own body ready to absorb whatever came. Sarah stepped forward too, weapon aimed squarely at Rourke. For a moment, the world held its breath. Rain misted. Guns leveled. Lives balanced on the trigger pull. And then, sirens. Flashing red and blue cut through the fog, patrol cars screeching to a halt at the edge of the pier. Officers poured out. Weapons drawn. Rourke's expression twisted. No, but Sarah's voice rang clear, loud, commanding. Detective Rourke, you are under arrest for conspiracy, corruption, and unlawful detainment. Drop your weapon. The officers hesitated, confused, uncertain whom to trust. Rourke snarled, eyes darting. His grip tightened on the gun. Daniel braced, shielding Emma. Sarah's finger steadied on the trigger. The battle for truth and survival was about to reach its breaking point. The pier was frozen in a tense standoff, the salt wind carrying the crackle of radios and the low hum of patrol cars idling. Red and blue lights painted the wet boards in eerie shades, flickering over the faces of armed men who now hesitated between two authorities. Sarah Mitchell, captain of the Metropolitan Police, and Detective Rourke, who had long masqueraded as their superior. "Don't listen to her." Rourke's voice thundered, sharp with desperation. His pistol never wavered from Daniel's chest. "She's gone rogue, making wild accusations. She's dirty. You follow her and you're throwing your careers away." Sarah's stance was unflinching, her badge flashing under the floodlights as she raised it high. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "I am Captain Sarah Mitchell. These files contain proof of his crimes. He has stolen from the very people he swore to serve. Look at him, hiding behind guns, hiding behind lies. Ask yourselves, does that look like a man protecting justice?" Her words rippled across the line of officers. Murmurs rose. Uncertainty cracked their unity. Some shifted their aim toward Rourke, others held steady, but their eyes betrayed doubt. Daniel felt Emma trembling behind him, her small hands clutching the back of his jacket. His heart pounded, his every nerve screaming to act. But one wrong move could end her life in an instant. Rourke sneered. "You think a badge and a speech are enough? These men know who signs their paychecks. They know who protects their careers. Drop your weapon, Mitchell, or I paint this pier red with him and the girl." The words sent fire through Daniel's veins. His daughter, his little girl, threatened like she was nothing more than leverage. His voice emerged low, steady, cold. "You won't touch her." Rourke barked a laugh. Big talk from a has-been soldier. But then Daniel took a single step forward, his eyes never leaving Rourke's. His tone dropped lower, filled with the kind of certainty only a man who had already faced death could carry. "I've stood across from men far worse than you. Men who thought power made them untouchable. And you know what every one of them had in common, Rourke? They all fell. Because power built on lies never lasts." For the first time, hesitation flickered in Rourke's eyes. He hadn't expected defiance, he had expected fear. Sarah seized the moment, her voice slicing through the night. "Officers, this is your line in the sand. You know his record. You've seen the whispers, the money trails, the cover-ups. Look inside yourselves. Are you with justice? Or with corruption?" One officer lowered his weapon. Then another. The sound of safeties clicking echoed in the night as more followed, choosing the truth over the chain of command. Rourke's fury boiled over. He grabbed Emma by the arm, yanking her forward as a shield. She cried out, fear strangling her small voice. Daniel's vision tunneled, the world narrowing to the sight of his daughter in a madman's grip. His chest heaved, his fists tightening, his soul burning with helpless rage. "Let her go," he roared, his voice shaking the pier. Sarah didn't flinch. She locked eyes with Rourke, her gun steady. "Last chance, Rourke. Release the girl. Do it now." Rourke's hand trembled, though his sneer remained. "I'll walk out of here with her, or nobody walks out at all." The world slowed. Daniel's mind calculated every angle, every possibility. He saw Emma's terrified eyes, her small body trembling in the grip of a man drunk on his own power. He saw the distance, too far to close before Rourke pulled the trigger. And then Emma did something neither man nor captain could have planned. With a burst of desperate courage, she stomped down hard on Rourke's foot, twisting violently in his grip. The surprise broke his hold just enough. In that heartbeat, Sarah fired. The shot rang out like thunder, echoing across the water. Rourke staggered, his gun clattering to the pier. He collapsed with a groan, clutching his shoulder as officers surged forward, weapons trained. Emma ran, straight into Daniel's arms. He scooped her up, holding her so tight she could barely breathe, his tears mixing with the mist. "I've got you. You're safe. You're safe now." Sarah moved swiftly, kicking Rourke's weapon away, ordering the officers to cuff him. Her voice was fierce, commanding, unyielding. "Get him secured. Read him his rights. Tonight, the rot in this department begins to end." The officers obeyed, and for the first time in years, Daniel saw justice take a breath of life. The chaos slowly settled. The pier, moments ago a battlefield, now stood as the place where truth had been dragged into the light. Sarah approached Daniel and Emma, her face softening. "You were right not to walk away," she said quietly. Daniel glanced down at his daughter, who still clung to him, then back at Sarah. "I didn't do it for the truth. I did it for her. But, maybe the truth needed us too." Sarah gave the faintest smile, wary but genuine. "It did." She handed him a card. "When this goes public, it's going to shake the city. I'll need testimony. Witnesses. You'll hear from me." Daniel nodded, slipping the card into his jacket. "We'll be ready." As the last of the corrupt men were loaded into patrol cars, the night air seemed lighter, the storm of violence fading into a fragile calm. Daniel and Emma walked slowly back to their truck, the city lights glimmering in the distance. Emma leaned her head against his arm, her voice soft but steady. "Dad." "Yeah, baby girl. You were a soldier again tonight." He paused, heart tightening. "I never stopped being one. I just hoped I wouldn't need to be anymore." Emma squeezed his hand. "I'm glad you were. You saved her. You saved me." Daniel kissed the top of her head, his throat tight with emotion. "No, sweetheart. You saved yourself. You were brave when it mattered most. Your mom would be proud." Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled through them. For the first time since her mother's passing, Daniel saw a spark of healing in his daughter's face. As they drove away from the pier, the city stretched before them. A city still shadowed by corruption, but now pierced by the light of truth. And though